What's up, athletes? So occasionally, sometimes in the lives, people will ask, "Is that all you do?" We do our push-ups, we do our squats, jumping jacks, and some sort of ab workout. And my answer is, yeah, for the most part. The stuff you've seen on the lives these last couple months generally is all that I do. Occasionally, I might get something else in, but if you're doing one or two workouts a day on a live, you're doing plenty for yourself to begin with. But the place that I go with that is people want to see the latest and greatest. They want to see fancier moves and more dynamic things and greater reps and efforts and things like that. And my thing is consistency and that discipline will get you there. Now, I'm not saying that you can't get there with these other things, but for those of us who just want to be slow and steady, win the race, this is fine. You hit your cornerstone exercises and you go from that. And the analogy that I've somewhat used is think of a person making a sword. Think of you being a sword. Let's go all the way back. Just a hunk of metal. Just a hunk of metal, very raw, and you have no real, like, there's a purpose as the existence, but what have you actually created at that point of yourself? So what do? They put it in immense fire until it is changed at its core, until its metabolism, until its metabolic state, until its very, like, matter heats up. And then you can really begin the change. That is the change. That is the changing point. Once it has been selected, and then once it is put into that fire. And what happens after that? This person crafts it. They take it and they bang on it and they knock it into a flatter shape. They're changing its structure. They're changing what it has been used to being this entire time. And then, if I have it right, then they put it in water to hold that shape. That is, the motivation is gone now. The fire was the motivation. That was what started this. But now it is steeped. It is frozen now in this new shape. And then the sharpening process starts. But it's easy. It's the same movement. It's the same movement. That's the consistency and discipline to get up every day and do that same thing. I get it. It's not sexy, but it's effective. And that's what we're getting at. We aren't trying to do the latest and greatest when it comes to all of these different moves, these different things. We want something that's proven to work. And what sword makers over time have known what works is to heat that metal, bang it, freeze it, get that shape to stay, and then you begin that sharpening process. And again, there's nothing wrong with other things, and I'm sure over time there's been the axe grinder. There's things that you can do in a different way, but if you're talking about the classic way to do it, that's what's been done. That's what blacksmiths and sword makers and all of these people who fashion sharp objects, blades, because you want to be a sharper version of yourself. You want to be that sharper version so you can cut through some of the nonsense and the challenges that life provides for us. And you get there when you have a greater confidence in yourself. But that comes from being a polished instrument. That comes from taking the time to put yourself in a fire to say, no more with these habits. No more with these things that are just keeping me a hunk of metal that somebody else would normally discard. You've taken a hunk of metal and turned it into something priceless, like an amazing sword. And over time, those swords have been revered for their abilities. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be an instrument of death at all. But what it means is you have fashioned yourself into something of great value. And that's what we're going at. That's where we're coming from. Being able to get up every day and just go to the work. Whether it's push-ups, I get it. People want to see one-handed push-ups, Superman push-ups, clapping push-ups. Nope, we're just doing push-ups. We're just doing the push-ups. They want to see squats with weights on them. They want to see these other things. I have no qualms with what they want to see, but what we are going to do is going to stay on our path. We're going to stay on our purpose. So occasionally, yes, we will mix things up, but the consistency and discipline is what we get up and do. It would be like saying, hey, this morning, instead of putting your pants on one leg at a time to get dressed and go out in the world, why don't you have somebody else hold them and you backflip into them when just putting your pants on one leg at a time works? And again, this isn't to knock anybody who wants to see differently or who thinks that there's more out there, that we could be doing more. But when we get here and we're doing things and then you see like do burpees or do 50 push-ups instead of 20, we have our plan. So does that swordsmith. And so do most of you when it comes to what you are going to do on a daily basis to get yourself ready to go out into the world. So it's just my considered thoughts. What I wanted to be able to do is really speak to it in a brief and concise manner. I don't want to hold you guys up. We're at about 5 minutes. But the point is, when you are out there, don't let other people ego you into doing things that you haven't really done before. Now, if you're willing to try it, that's a different thing. But that's the big part, is sometimes you have to stand your ground. And that's part of becoming that new instrument, that polish, that fastening, that sharpening. Goes back to that heating process, the banging it with the hammer. You've created the new shape of you. So don't let somebody come in and tell you that, well, that's not the right shape. It is for you. Now, if you still need the extra help and you're willing to learn from that, that's great. But once you know your purpose and once you know your direction that you want to take, there's nothing wrong with saying, respectfully, I either disagree, or respectfully, I know what I want to do and this is what I'm going to do, and do that. But too many times, and I know that era, you're not lifting enough, or you're doing it wrong, or if you're not hurting yourself or other people, then something is better than nothing. And that's all that I really have in this message. But just understand that sometimes that grind is going to be a grind, and grind isn't pretty. The grind isn't pretty. The end result is, but the grind isn't always pretty. That hustle, that getting up, we go live every morning. Sometimes we don't always feel like doing it, but that's consistency and discipline. The motivation, when you feel in a good mood, that's the great part. That's the arc of it. Hey, I feel great. I'm going to get up and do it. What happens when you're not? When things don't look so, rosy that morning? May not have gotten enough sleep, stomach hurts a little bit, whatever that is, and you still get up and do it. Same thing when you don't really feel like going into work that day, but you still go and do it. You really don't feel like going to school that day, but you go in and do it. That's that consistency and discipline. That is the grind. That is banging that piece of metal. Now your diploma, your weight loss, finishing that 5K, that 10K, that PR, that is that shiny sword. That's what you finish with. That is what everything that you worked for. You've polished it. You've created something of value that you can go back and say, that's what it was all about. But sometimes it's not going to be fanfare and flowers the entire way. It shouldn't be. I don't want it to be. I want there to be some really hard moments. That's how we grow, mind, body, and soul. So I'm going to leave it at that. But I would love to know what you guys think about this, because a lot of you see it in the chats, and maybe some of you have said it in the chats. I'm not mad at that either. I'm just giving a clear, concise explanation that when we're talking about doing this, think of creating a sword. Think of that sort of thing. It's a process that just sharpening it over time. Over time, it's the same thing. And generally where we get the saying, iron sharpens iron, that is just, we're just putting one object against the next. So let me know what you guys think. I'd love to know your ace up the sleeve, your advice, your comment, your experience. Leave it in the chat. And we're going to keep building this amazing community that you guys have been a part of. So if you haven't subscribed, they are free. We invite you. If you have, we thank you. And guys, as always, share the content with somebody you know who might enjoy this, or who you might think needs something like this. So I'm going to leave it at that, but I hope this finds everybody in your place, pursuit, or beginnings of total health, mind, body, and soul. And like we like to say here, HWPO, and that means hard work pays off. And this is the Impact Athletics Association. We'll see you guys soon. And you know what? Let's see if we can put a couple other videos or something, a subscription to the channel right here. So stick around, guys.